maybe.
You're gonna try. Hey, listen, we just got the attendees showing. We can only do so much so quick around here. All right. While you're working on that, I'm going to finish wrapping up a couple of things on my end. Should have a pretty big crowd here today, Joe. I'm expecting upwards of 30 people coming in to view this today.
It's a big deal.
That's not just 30 people. Let me rephrase that. That is 30 of the brightest minds, some of the most intelligent people that I happen to know in all of the world.
I'm just looking at the list, and I would agree. Oh, great. Now the chat window's
I was going to
blowing
say,
up.
now we're firing it up now. Excellent. That's how you guys start out the big sale. At the end of this, when we hit you with the proposition that we're selling something, you will have been so schmoozed up at that point, you won't be able to help but to just turn over whatever amount of money we're requesting.
Is this like one of those mall kiosk, like
Yes.
airstream?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't work too well with me, but that's all right.
Okay.
They still.
Speaking of the mall, I went to the mall for like the first time in 10 years last week. It was an incredible experience.
Sorry to hear that. I hope you had the kids with you, and that's why you went.
I did, yes. The kids were with me. I had a daughter getting an ear pierced, so yeah, it was quite the experience.
I get made fun of when I get to the mall.
You should.
I was on my phone and with I think it was the nieces, and I turned around and they were going into the store, and I said, "What is just ice?" And from there, I've never.
You could have filled in a lot of things with that statement. What is this that whatever kids these days are interested in?
I'm like, they just sell like jewelry, diamonds. No, just
Mm-hmm.
ice. Uncle Joe, that's justice. I'm like,
Ah,
okay.
wow. Go ahead and show how old you are. That's great.
Yeah, I know, I know. I'm that guy.
Well, Joe, I do think I have everything ready for today. We're going to find out if I can pull this off. We got about another 4 minutes, and then we are going to get this thing started. I'm doing last minute preparations here, Joe. I waited till the absolute last second to get this thing functional. All right, I made my last change. This is either going to work totally or just most of the way. I think it's going to work. We're going to find out. I got 2 minutes till the hour, so we will start this thing up in 2 minutes. Got it. Just under the wire. All right, I see him pouring in now. We're up to almost 20 at this point. So, Joe, I'm going to need you to keep an eye on the basketball games and keep me updated on the scores, since
You
some
should have
knucklehead.
multiple monitors. So if you pull up ESPN.com on one, you
Yeah,
can do the other.
I have found out I'm not the individual that can do that sort of a level of multitasking. I cannot sit here and do a presentation of this and watch basketball. So I have no clue who went and booked this while basketball was going on, but kudos to that brilliant mind. What do we got? Do we have? Let me check it out. Now that we got 30 seconds to go, let's get last second check on basketball games. Looks like we got a nail biter between Notre Dame and Princeton. Notre Dame's up by 3. The other games are still a little bit early. All right, Joe, any last minute comments before we get this thing kicked off?
Let's do it.
All right, well, as I see people still pouring in at this point. All righty, well, we have 2 o'clock on the nose, so we are going to kick off this safe session number 3. With the primary focus being applied to covering the media area of our software. Media is a very important feature to the application, so we're going to spend a little bit of time here today going through it pretty in-depthly. A couple of things just to note to get started out with. As we always do, we are recording these sessions. And the first 2 sessions are now available to be watched online. We're not very far from putting it on the website. But what I'm going to attempt to do, hopefully this will work. Let me go to the questions. I see questions in there. Let me see. I don't know how I'm going to post something. Joe, I am going to message you over. You know what? Let's do this. At the end of the presentation, I'll send everybody a follow-up email with the links to the first 2 sessions. That way, if you want to take a look at them, you can watch them. So let's go ahead and we'll do it that way. Now, before we get into media, while I still have people pouring in, there's a couple of recent updates that I want to go over that are pretty significant in what they do, but they're actually pretty minor as far as the effort that was required to get it in the application. So I just want to take a minute and show these off to everybody in case you're interested in it. You may or may not be. But let's go through a few of them, and these are in the way of security, locking down your system as to who can get in and to what degree of effort that they're going to go through once they do get in. So there's 3 different things I want to cover really quickly. The first one, inside your settings area under organization. So for anybody that is using the product right now, if you go to settings organization, there's an IP whitelisting tab up here at the top. Now, a word of warning before you go in and do anything, and I think Joe was just about to jump in on this. Understand right now, anybody can access this website. Anybody can log into your organization regardless of where they are at. If you go in and apply an IP whitelist, it's going to only allow traffic from the specific IP that you allow. So when I go in and select my IP, it's gonna pop up and give me what is my current IP address. Yes, Joe.
Ben, can you share your screen?
Doggone it. Yeah, it would be helpful to start that out, Joe.
Here you go. All right.
Okay, let's back that up real quick now that everybody has heard that. Let's go back through this one more time. In fact, how about we just start it over? Now that we've got even more people pouring in, let's just start it over real quick so that we get a good recording from the beginning. I'd like to welcome everybody to Safe Session number 3. Today we are going to focus on the media feature of our application. And prior to getting into media, I want to cover some of the security options that have recently been turned on within the application. You may or may not be interested in this, but I do want people to know where these security settings are located. So the first thing we're going to cover under settings organization is IP whitelisting. All right, now IP whitelisting allows you to dictate which IP addresses on the internet will have access to logging into your organization. So by default, anybody from any computer, wherever they're at, can log into your organization. Obviously, of course, if they have permissions to log in. IP whitelisting allows you to state, I don't want just everybody to log in. I want to block it to a specific IP address or maybe a range of IP addresses. So by going in and adding an IP whitelist and I select my IP, it's going to default. It actually goes out and finds what my current IP is. If I click save, the only people that can log into my organization will be people coming from that address. Word of warning to everybody, if you do that and you click save, just know that if you happen to not be on the IP address that you're saving, you will literally block yourselves out and you'll have to contact support to get that turned back on. And you can add multiple addresses. If you have multiple buildings and multiple IP subnets that you want people to log in from, you can go in and throw those in there. And again, the entire purpose of that is it only allows traffic to your organization from that IP. So it's a way to lock down access to your organization. Okay, that's one area that you can enable tighter security on. The next one I want to get into, every individual user inside their user settings area. So go log in, go to user settings, and then at the bottom there's an option you can edit and enable Google Authenticator. Now, Google Authenticator is a multi-factor authentication application, and what that simply means is if on your iPhone or your Android or whatever device you want to use, you can download an app called Google Authenticator. And when you go in and apply this multi-factor authentication to your user, that means when you log in, not only do you apply a username and a password, but it will make you provide a code that is applied by the device that you enable this on. So you simply tell the users, go into user settings, enable Google Authenticator, and then the actual app on your phone, you'll scan that barcode from your screen. Literally, you'll just scan the screen. It'll ask you to punch a couple of codes in, and then you will have enabled Google Authenticator. So I'm going to do this real quick on mine. And obviously you can't see my phone here, but I'm going to go in. I've already scanned the barcode on the screen. And so now it's asking me what is the ID that's being applied to your phone. And so I'm going to punch that in. And now it says it's been enabled. So next time when I log in, no longer will it just be my username or password. It now makes me punch in this code from my phone. That's multi-factor authentication. Most people, I understand, are not going to do that, but it does provide a great level of security to your account being logged in correctly because it's now using that from your phone. Now, as an administrator, and most of the people on the line here should be an administrator, if you want to know if your users have applied the multi-factor authentication, just go into user admin and you'll now see at the very end, here is a new tab called MFA enabled, and that'll let you know which users have enabled it. So now as an administrator, I mean, you can't force somebody to turn that on because they have to do it on their phone, but you can dictate it and then keep track of that and make sure that people do have MFA enabled. Okay. The last thing I want to cover is SAML authentication. So our product now has SAML enabled. And for most of you, I understand, are not going to know what SAML is, but what SAML is single sign-on. Okay, so a lot of organizations have now implemented single sign-on to where you as a user only log into one website, and then you simply click the website you want to go to, and they automatically log you in. So here, I'm going to show you a third-party SAML provider that I'm going to log into. This is the kind of thing, by the way, for most of you, you're going to go back to IT and say, hey, they're saying something about single sign-on. Do you guys provide SAML? And if their answer is yes, then you may want to get that turned on within your application because then your users don't have to log in anymore. They just log into here. So here is a third-party SAML provider. I have a link into one of our websites. When I click on that link, it is automatically logging me in. There is no more login to the software. Okay, now just to reiterate, that only works if you have SAML enabled and engaged. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, go back to your IT people and say, hey, can we do SAML integration? Because then that allows you to, that is almost the best way to lock your software down. So if you enable IP whitelisting and multi-factor authentication or SAML, there isn't much more you can do to lock your login down to ensure that the people you expect to log in are those that are logging in. All right, let me stop. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that. Joe, do you see anything coming in regard to IP whitelisting, multi-factor authentication, or SAML?
You did such a great job of explaining it. Everybody understands it.
Or they have no clue what I'm talking about. And that could be it also. I'm going to go with the first one because I think I did a good job explaining that. I hope everybody did understand that. So,
I think so.
okay, let's get into media. The purpose of this call is to overview the media in our software, and there are two primary topics we're going to cover, and that is uploading media from within the software, and then another one is using a third-party application that we have developed to upload it via a system directly. Okay, so we're going to cover both of those in pretty great degree. So the first thing I want to do is let's go back to the dashboard, and we're going to cover just a couple of very basic tenets of media. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and we're going to create a new case in the software. And I'm just going to do this about as quickly as I can. So today is 0316. So I'm going to go with that, and I'm going to say this is a burglary case, and then I'm just going to fill this stuff out so that I've got some stuff in here, okay? All right, so well, I didn't mean to select that address, but it's fine. And so now I'm going to put that in there. All right, so at this point, I have created a case. All right, in fact, this is a case without any media in it. So let's get one piece of media in here very quickly. I'm going to put a bicycle in. So this is 520 Graves Avenue. Let's see if I can do this one a little better this time. There we go. Because I want to show you the purpose of me adding a piece of a case in and an item is I want to show you the difference between case media and item related media. Okay, so now we have an item in here. So I'm viewing my case. The first thing I want you to know is when you go to the media tab under a case, you are essentially at this point viewing or uploading media within a case. There's a difference between uploading media into a case. So like for example, let me grab a couple pieces of media here. So I'm viewing my desktop. I'm going to move that to a different screen here. And what I'm going to do is we are going to take and add one piece of media to the case. And I'm just going to grab a very simple image, and we're going to drag it onto the screen and throw it in there. And it's going to upload that JPEG file. Now, what I want to point out is I've uploaded a piece of media into the case. When I look at an item and go view the details on the item, you'll notice at the item level, there is no media. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to upload, excuse me, let me click the add button right there. So to add media, we simply click add, we drag it to the screen, and now I'm uploading a piece of media to the item. So that's important to understand. There is uploading media to a case, then there is uploading media to an item. And typically the difference is when you're throwing it under the case, most likely it's related to the case and not an individual item. And when it's related to an individual item, you want to throw it at the item level. Okay, so that's a basic tenet, and you've seen how to upload media at this point. So now let's take the idea of uploading media and let's look at some of this data that is generated when I do upload a piece of media. All right, so the first thing we get over here on the left is the actual name of the piece of media. That is whatever the file was that you uploaded, that is the original file name. Here is the size of the file. And in a little bit, we're going to see that the size is fairly important to understand how large these files are. Okay, let me skip hashing for just a minute. We're going to come back to hashing. Then we've got the date that the file was uploaded. There is no category or description. And then we suggest here, where is the file stored? And it's in our safe cloud. I drug this file into the system, and so it's showing in there, and then it shows me what primary case that piece of media belongs to. Okay, now also, if I go over here to the left and I click on media details, I get a lot of what was on the main screen, but there's actually even more data inside here. So not only do I see the primary case and the file name and when it was uploaded and who uploaded it, and then again my hash, I've got this down here where I see media details. So what happens is when you upload a piece of media, we not only look at the file name, but we actually read all the metadata that is wrapped around that media, and we display it on the screen. Now, this is stuff typically when you're just looking at a file, you wouldn't even know that it existed. But this is all the stuff that's being stored in the background in relation to that piece of media that I just uploaded. And some of this stuff may not mean anything to you at all, but look, I mean, look how much metadata that there is in regard to this file. And that stuff is just sitting in the background whether you use it or not. In a minute, I'm going to show you how we begin to search on some of this stuff. But that media details is extremely important just to know that it is there. And then down at the very bottom under this piece of media, I've got the actual chain of custody in regard to that media. Okay, so let's back up a screen. And let's go in. I'm going to put a checkbox next to this piece of media, and I'm going to go to actions, and we're going to do a mass update. This is where you can go in and you can apply either a category to the media, like for example, if it's sensitive media, and these are just visual category names. So I'm going to go in here and put this is a piece of test media. And so now when I click OK on that, it's going to categorize it and put a description in there on it. And just so you know, if you had multiple pieces of media there, you could select all of them and go up and say, I want to mass update all of that media. So now we've uploaded media. You can start to see some information come alive on this. There are other options, like you can click this green button here, and it's going to download a copy of the piece of the media. So there is the actual file. I'm popping it up on my desktop. There is the original file that was uploaded. All right. I can also just click on the thumbnail and have it display the larger file on the screen. So that's just, I go in and view it. And then the last thing I want to cover here real quick is the deleting the piece of media. So we're going to go in and we're going to say, I want to delete, and we hit, yes, I do want to delete it. And you're going to notice it puts a big red X there. All that it deleted at this point was the actual payload file. It did not delete any of the other metadata in relation to that file. In fact, you can still see all the media details here. And even more importantly, down at the bottom, here are all of the chain of custody records on that piece of media. When it was created, it was updated. I applied a description and a category. I then downloaded it. Then I viewed the file. Then I deleted it. And that right there is one of the most important reasons to take all of this picture, all of this media, and use our software to track it, because it's going to ensure your chain of custody on all of this media. Okay? If you don't do this, and if it's just on a hard drive inside your building, or if it's on a CD or a DVD or whatever you put all your media on, more likely a thumb drive than a CD or a DVD, you don't get the chain of custody of all of this information. Okay. Joe, anything popped up? Any questions so far?
Again, you're doing such a great job.
Good. All right, so let's do this. Let's go back now, and I'm going to throw a couple of different kinds of, because the word media means a lot of stuff. You know, I understand I've thrown up an example of a JPEG file, but let's throw up I'm going to throw up an MP4 file into there. I'm going to take let me see if I have yeah, I've got one here. Let me get a Word. Okay, so here's an Excel file that I'm going to throw up. I could throw up PDF files. I mean, when we say media, it literally is any type of file. So now you'll see I've thrown up a couple of more records inside of here. Here is an Excel file. Now, if you try to view the Excel file, when I click on it, it's going to say, hey, I can't preview this in the browser. Do you just want to download it? And if you hit yes, it'll download it, and then it will show that chain of custody record that occurred. All right. So now let's look at something that is a little more important, which is video. So this is an MP4 file that I uploaded. So I'm going to click on it, and you'll notice now, not only is it showing me the media, but it's actually playing the media. All right. So now, you're not only limited to picture files or even Word and Doc, we can now start uploading larger media files that I want to track. Okay. And even with the media, when you get into it, I mean, even a media file, look at this. It has all sorts of media details that are or metadata details that are listed inside of here, including the original file name, the original size, the date that it was, the file when it was created. In this case, it was, I just copied it to my computer, so that's why it's showing that time on there. Okay. All right. So now you're seeing uploading media. Let's take a minute and talk about this hash key. All right, because many of you have probably never dealt with the concept of a hash key, but it's something that you definitely want to understand how this works. And where hash keys come into place is if somebody were to question a piece of media that they're looking at, how do I know that it was the same piece of media that got uploaded on a particular date and time? Like, for example, here, this video file right here, when you upload it into our software, it automatically creates a hash key for it. It reads the file, it creates a key for it, and then it says, when this file was uploaded, that's the key that was presented. Okay, so we know this file has that metadata key. But what if somebody were to go in and download that file and then somehow modify it? And then they were to go to court or whatever, wherever they would go with that file, and somebody were to say, well, how do I know that you didn't modify that file that I'm looking at right there? Okay, well, the answer to that is very simple. There is a third-party website, and I'm going to bring it up here. All right, so there's a website called onlinemd5.com. All right, and so what this website allows you to do is it allows you to take any piece of media, drag it into the software, and it's going to come back and tell you, based on that file you just uploaded, here is the hash key. Now, for all my technical people out there, just so you know, our software, this is a MD5 hash key. Okay, so when you go into something like this, you're going to need to say that the original file is MD5 hash generated. So at this point now, I should be able to come back here. I'm going to take a copy of this file right there. All right, and then I'm going to paste it in, and it's going to tell me if it's a match or not. And I can tell you that that one is not a match because I downloaded that file. It has a different download date and time, so it is generating some different metadata variables to it. So if I actually go back now and take that file, we're going to drag that file right back up into there, and we'll notice that that file, oh, shoot, let's try that one more time. And actually, you know what? That's the big difference is that file name right there is what changed on it. So you can see my original file that I uploaded was called that. When I download it, it does that. Okay? But at this point now, we can start to see, hey, is this thing the original file or not? You simply come in here and you can compare the files to see if what they're looking at is the same thing that you've got. Now, by the way, just so you know, this is not even anything with our software specifically. You can take any piece of media that you're looking at, you can go right into this software right here, and then you can drag them right onto the screen, and you can find out what is the hash key that would be generated for that file. That right there is specifically how people can tell if the file that was uploaded is the same that you're looking at. Okay? So hashing, probably most of you don't deal with that in too much of in depth, but it is something that is available within our software. Okay, Joe, what do we got coming in? Anything?
Big fat zero, man. You're
Big
doing a
fat zero.
phenomenal job.
Okay. Is there anybody? I'm curious with anybody that is on the line. Have you ever dealt with hashing? I mean, just has anybody ever been in a situation where you've done what I just explained right there?
Well, I could see four of them that better say yes.
Okay. I mean, we have people on here that I would think that that answer is yes. So, all right. Well, maybe they're not quick on the trigger of getting in there. I do see stuff popping up. So people must be saying something, Joe.
Yeah, so a lot of no's, but I do have a question. We have a question. Is there a file size limitation?
No, as a matter of fact, there is not. Now, the only thing that there is to keep in mind when it comes to file sizes is your licensing to our software allows you so much free data storage. It's 250 gigabytes per concurrent license. So you can do some simple math and find out however many concurrent licenses you have. It allows that much data upload. So the size of the files do matter, but there is no maximum file. And we're going to get into searching in just a minute and how we can start looking for older files that might need to be deleted. All right, Joe, anything else?
Nope, doing good.
All right, so let's take this. You're now seeing uploading media, hashing, details, chain of custody within a specific piece of media. But let's expand upon this a little bit and let's go over to the left and let's go back to searching. Now, hopefully, most of you watched our very first safe session on advanced searching, and we spent almost an hour going through all the various aspects of searching. We're now going to go back and we're going to focus on media for just a moment. So when you open up a specific case, I'm viewing media from in a case or in an item. This allows you to go in and search for things at a much larger level. Like, for example, how much media do I have within the software here? So I'm simply going to go in and click search. And now it's going to come back and tell me at the very bottom, I've got 1,859 pieces of media that have been uploaded. And we can begin to start breaking this down a little bit. Not only do I want to see how many items are uploaded, but let's go in and see how much of it is still active. Because once you delete it, it's no longer active. So I've got 1,859 total pieces of media. I've got 1,807 active pieces of media. And let's go a little deeper than that. I want to know how much of it is older than a year, because now this becomes the stuff I can start to look at deleting. So there's 1,859 total, 1,807 active, and I can tell you that there are 1,408 active that are older than a year. And so this is the kind of stuff you can start looking at and saying, oh yeah, hey, I know this file, and this file, I can delete this. And then you can go in and start deleting them. Certainly, deleting stuff that is larger in size becomes more important at that point. I want to see how much I've got. So now I'm going to show you. I hope I can do this. I didn't test this ahead of time, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a search. Let's save this search, and everybody should know how to do all of this. If you don't know how to do what I'm doing right now, go back and watch safe session video number 1 on searching. So I'm going to create all active media. I'm going to create a search called all active media. And I'm going to go back to my dashboard. And now that I've created that, let's create a new widget. And I know everybody knows how to do this. So I'm creating a new widget and I'm going to call this media. All right. And so now I've added that. So what we're going to do is we're going to add that new search that I just created, but I'm going to do 2 things with this. And I hope the last one, it works. So I'm going to create and I'm going to add this to the screen. And now when I log in, I can tell I've got 1,408 pieces of active media that also, remember, it's older than a year. So actually, this thing should be renamed to older than a year, because that's what that is. Now I'm going to try to do one more thing. I'm going to go back in and add a new line item, and then I'm going to go down and pick that search. But instead of counting the type field, upload date, where's the size of my media? Why do I not have the size of the media on here? Well, that was a fail. I thought I had size of media in here. I was going to count I was going to summarize the field, and I don't know why I'm not seeing that. So I'm going to have to find out why that's not included on there. But what I was going to try to do is get an actual megabyte count of how much media I had uploaded into the system. So I have to figure out why that's not working. This is why you test those things before you get on a demo like that. All right, so let's go back to media searching again. And now you're starting to get an idea of how I go in and start bringing some of these things together and then saving these things to the dashboard. And I can also go in and search on categories now. I mean, again, once you start applying data to all of this stuff, now I can go in and find out how much media do I have that is still active that has a category of general on it. And that answer is 3. All right, so we're starting to upload media. We're starting to categorize it, put descriptions on it, check. We're looking at chain of custody on all of this stuff. One thing that I forgot to mention in my details area, there's a button up here at the top where you can click Save to PDF, and it's going to generate out a PDF of all of this data that's on the screen, including the chain of custody. Okay? So that's a nice way to have a printable document with all of your chain of custody and all the other details on a piece of media. All right, Joe, anything else coming up?
Nope.
All right. I'm going to flip over. One of our clients that is actually on the line here today watching this is the Florence, Kentucky Police Department. Okay? And I'm hopping into their system for just a moment. I want to talk about what they're doing with media within our software. Okay, so I'm going to go down, and they've actually I've got a media statistics here on the main screen. I've got right now 126 pieces of unassigned media, and so I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to view that. Sorry, let me go in here and do this. I got to put an office in. There we go. All right, so now I'm viewing media, but what they're doing is they're using it for body cam video. Okay, so prior to implementation of our system, the way that they handled all of their body cam video was they dumped it all on a multi-terabyte hard drive that was in their building. And anybody had access to that hard drive. And ultimately, the biggest problem they had was there was no way to go in and find out if somebody were to call them on the phone and say, hey, I'm looking for a specific piece of media. Maybe it's from a date range. Maybe it was a specific officer that uploaded it. And they didn't have the ability really to find any of that stuff very easily. So what we did was well, first of all, they started using our software to upload all the body cam video. Now, I don't actually have access to all these videos. They're stored in their building in Florence, Kentucky, so I can't click on any of the video to watch it. But you can see they're uploading a lot of media into the system. And their officers, if they were to log in and click on any of those images from within their building, they can view all of this body cam media. But here is the much more important aspect. Let's go back to that file size that we were talking about earlier. Notice the size of these videos that are being uploaded, 120 meg, 80, 100. And if I scroll, here's almost 400 megabytes, 300. I mean, you can see on average, it almost looks like every video produced is almost 300 megabytes in size. And so if you do a little bit of math and go down and say, okay, well, if each one of them are 300 megabytes and I'm looking at 130 videos, I'm looking at almost 39 gigabytes of data just with 130 videos. Now, you have the option of putting all of that into our cloud environment. But here's the next thing that I want to focus on. I want to talk about our on-premise file server for just a moment. All right. Now, this may be of particular interest to the people that are on the line that are doing forensic analysis on hard drives or maybe really large media. And so the question becomes, do I have to load all of this media up into the cloud? Okay, what if it's a 5 gigabyte file? What if it's a really long video? Do I have to upload all of that data into the cloud? And the answer is yes or no. I want to show off our on-premise file server. Okay, so I'm showing you a screenshot of a Windows device that I'm running. Okay, so here's how this works at the Florence Police Department. The officer goes out and records all this video on the camera. And then they come back and they have no ability to modify the data that is on the camera. All right, and that's very important. We don't want them to be able to modify the data that's on the camera. Okay, now that's not me dictating it. That is the camera vendor saying, hey, there's no way to modify this data. Now, for the people that are doing forensic analysis or e-discovery that are on the line here, instead of the drive coming in as a camera from an officer, this could be you bringing in a hard drive that has a whole bunch of data files on it that you're about to process. And so, for example, this screen right here on the left is like a hard drive that has a bunch of files on it. Now, if this was a camera, we wouldn't be seeing the camera. So one of the things we have the option of doing, here is a file right here. It's a 20 megabyte camera file. And so if you can imagine with me for a moment, I dock my body camera into a cradle, and again, they can't touch anything on it. It takes that file and it copies it over to this drive letter on my computer. Now, they're not seeing any of this. The camera is automatically doing it. It takes the files the minute they dock it. The camera is set up to automatically dump the files into that folder right there. Now, if you were paying attention, notice all of a sudden the file left. Okay? We have an application that is operating on that Windows machine that anytime a file is dropped into that folder, it automatically uploads it into our software, but it only uploads all the metadata. So if this goes well, there is the actual piece of media that I dumped onto the Windows drive back here. So our application found that file, it uploaded all of that metadata into the application, and so there's the file sitting right there. I didn't have to log into the software to add it. And more importantly, that file never left that machine right here. As a matter of fact, if I go to a different directory, there is the file. So the way we handle this at Florence is very simply this. Officer comes in with their body cam, they dock it, it automatically dumps the files into this folder right here. They never see this going on. Our software picks the file up, processes it, and then moves it into a folder that they don't have access to. Now I'm seeing this folder right here because I do have access to it, but they won't have access to it. So the file gets uploaded, they never touch it, it automatically goes into a folder that they don't have access to, and now we can manage it from within the software. So this is our cloud-based application, but all of those files that I showed you earlier from the Florence PD, they never left their building. That 29 or 39 gigabyte worth of files is still sitting in a hard drive back in their facility. But the benefit that they get is not only I don't have to upload 39 gigabyte of files to the internet, but now Safe is allowing me to manage all of that video. I can still go in, and if somebody wants to view the video, I can still click on it. And now here's the video running. And by the way, that's running off of that machine that I just uploaded it from. Not only do I have all of that and I can still download it, I can go in and delete this stuff. I can manage the chain of custody on it. So the software is enforcing chain of custody on all this media. So flipping over to my folks that are on the line in the digital evidence world, right now you can still use your SANS drive to store all of this video or all of these files, but you're putting it in such a way that the user that loads the file in, they lose control over it the minute it's applied and uploaded to our software. And the only way they can access the file is via the software. So no matter what they want to do, if they want to download it or view it or whatever it may be, they have to do it through the software, and that enforces chain of custody. Okay? So flipping back over to the Florence Police Department, let me just do a couple of really quick statistics in here. If I go in and look at their total media, and they just started using this at the beginning of the year, since the beginning of the year, they've uploaded 583 images. Now, in their old setup, that would have been 583 files that went onto a hard drive and would have sat there for forever. Now they can go in and say, how much of this stuff has already been deleted? Because they get a lot of video, maybe somebody accidentally records it. I can tell you out of 583 images, they've already deleted 253. Half of all that media that would have just gone onto that hard drive and never been accounted for, or at least they had no great way to do it, is now being accounted for. They've deleted half of them already. And oh, by the way, just as a side note, they're not actually really deleted. We move them into a folder called deleted media, and it sits there for 60 days. That way, if somebody were to accidentally click a button, even though our software pops up and says, hey, when you delete that media, it's going away forever, it's sort of that soft forever where it's still in the background for 60 days. And after 60 days, it will delete it off of that hard drive. So now I guess the ultimate benefit for the city of Florence now is all of this media is managed from within the software. They can bring up a case. So let's go back here. I would say, as I sort of summarize this, I would say the number one benefit of dealing with media in our software is so that when you bring up a case, I can see here is physical evidence, here is digital evidence, one tab over. Number two, I'm getting chain of custody on the digital media just like I am my physical media. And isn't that the purpose why you use software like this, is to get chain of custody? Who's touched it? When did they touch it? Why did they touch it? And so now you're getting it on your physical and your digital media. Okay, now I threw out a mouthful there. I believe a lot of you that are on the line probably are not using body cams yet. I know that that's sort of the idea of things that are coming. The reason I show this off today is so that when it does come and somebody's knocking on your door and saying, hey, how are we going to manage all of this body camera stuff? Well, now you've got an option. And obviously it would be really nice when you get everything in here that you can manage it all from one system. Okay? For all my e-discovery folks that are out there, maybe somebody could respond and tell me in the window, do you understand now how if you want to get chain of custody on all your media, you can still leave all this data on whatever hard drive or a SANS drive? You lock those folders down so that only certain people can get access to them, but now you're controlling access to media. All right, Joe, let me take a breath. What are we getting feedback-wise?
So if they use WatchGuard for their body and car cams, can they use that in our system?
So that's the beautiful thing. Because of the way we built this, the hardware, it doesn't matter to me what hardware you're using. As long as you can configure the camera to say, hey, when it's docked, I want you to dump the data into this folder, it does not matter what camera you're using. So I can tell you that Florence, Kentucky, they're using, oh man, I had, shoot, what's the name of that? Come on, Joe. It's,
Provision.
Pro. Is it Provision? I don't know. Christy's on the line. Christy, could you message us and tell us what camera you're using? In the end, the answer to the question is, to us, it does not matter what the camera is, as long as can be configured to dump the file into a drive on where we can pick it up and process it.
Awesome. Another question is, so it handles this image files and EO1s the same way?
It actually does. So what happens is, if even if you dump an EO1 into this folder, what'll happen is when you read it on the screen here, it won't have a thumbnail. It can't get a thumbnail on an EO1, but it'll still give us a hash key. It'll still give us the size of the file. It'll tell us the date and time it was uploaded, and we'll take as much metadata as available on it as what is available. We'll upload all the media details. Oh, by the way, the one thing I did forget to mention earlier, inside so like for example, check this out. So this is a piece of the metadata that's in this particular file right here. When you go back in and do a search under media, you can search those media details. So this is how now, if I want to go in and find every file that's ever been uploaded that may have a particular piece of metadata, I can go in and punch that in there, and this should give me some results here. Okay, it doesn't like the colon, I think. Let's try to get rid of that. Okay, so now I'm starting to get a bunch of responses. So I can tell you there's 15 files that contain MP2 on it, or whatever that was that I did a search on it. Okay. Other questions, Joe?
No, I think we're doing good.
Is Christy not there? Did Christy not respond with the type of camera?
She said that no response.
No response. Okay. I cannot believe I cannot remember the name of that. I don't know. You know what? In the end, it doesn't matter what the camera is, as I explained earlier. As long as it can be configured to dump a file into a directory, it's going to work with our software. And that
It
is
is.
extremely important. That becomes an important feature that you can buy any camera, because there are departments that have 3, 4, 5 different kinds of cameras. And so it doesn't matter to us.
It is Provision.
Provision. Okay, Provision camera. And I believe, I'm fairly confident in stating, somebody may correct me if I'm wrong here, I believe we are the only cloud-based evidence or media tracking application that is out there that allows you to store the actual payload file inside your facility so that you don't have to upload all that to the cloud. I know evidence.com with Taser, if you're using their product, everything has to be uploaded to the cloud. And then you start getting into, and some people may want to do that. I mean, there are people on here that are going to say, hey, you know what? I don't want it in my building. And there's a very good argument for not keeping it in your building. But there are some people that have large data files and they don't want to upload that stuff to the internet. Maybe your internet connection is not the greatest in the world. This allows you to have a cloud-based tracking application, but you're storing all the data locally. And that is significant, especially for all the folks on the line that are doing e-discovery, because you're not dealing with 300 and 400 meg files. You may be dealing with multi-gigabytes or even getting up into terabyte size files. And so now keeping all of that on that drive and still controlling access to it via the SANs, that becomes important. Okay. I got one last thing I'm going to show off if there's no more questions about this. It's something that I told Joe I was not going to do it, and I'm doing it, Joe. I'm going to show something cool off. Is there any other comments or questions on media? You know, I thought about it, Joe. I'm doing it. Okay.
Been warned.
Yep. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you guys is something that is coming. I cannot tell you when it's coming. In fact, I need everybody to raise their right hand and swear under oath that they understand that I'm saying I do not know when this is going to be released. It is something that is in the initial phases of design. Okay, do I have everybody's solemn understanding of that statement? Because as soon as I say that, I'm going to say, when's this thing going to be available? When's it going to be available? All right, so what I want to show off here over on the left-hand side, I have some of the initial workflow in place, okay? And workflow within our software is the ability to notify a person or a group when a certain event or action takes place. Okay, this was not even available in our legacy fluid product. This is brand new to this system. So I just want to show you real quick what it looks like to add a workflow. So when I go in, I'm going to name the workflow. So we'll call this test workflow. Okay, what is this workflow going to be based on? So right now I'm just going to go with when a case action occurs. So then I can go in and say, I want to be notified when a case is either created or modified, or if a specific field is edited. So if I were to go in and do something very simple, like I want to be notified anytime a case is created, I can go in and say only if the case officer is a particular person. Okay, so I could go in and put like Townsend or something to that effect. For the purpose of this, I'm just going to do all. And then the last thing I'm going to do down here is put in how am I getting notified on this. And while this is even much further down the road, we're actually working on text-based notifications on this. So if I were to go in and save this workflow right here, that means every time a case is created, regardless of any records, I'm going to get an email about it. Or you can start getting in and saying, I want to know anytime a case is modified when the case type is, or I'm sorry, where that field is modified. I only want to be notified if offense type is modified. Okay. So what this gets into, some of the police department scenarios that I'm thinking of is I want to be notified anytime money is entered, or maybe I want to notify the finance department. Or maybe I want to be notified anytime a drug is modified, maybe only if it's a specific type of drug. And so now you're starting to get into workflow scenarios like that, where you can literally get email or text-based, and we're also putting tasking in there, where you're going to be able to trigger an event based on one of those things happening. So yes, what you're seeing on the screen here, it actually works in our test environment. It's probably months away before I'm ready to release this out for full-blown use, but I just want to give you the kind of an idea of the kind of thing that we're heading toward. Because I think when you get something like this, this thing's going to grow up and become. I mean, there are so many scenarios I can think of when it comes to workflow and trigger-based events. I mean, that could be endless. Okay, I just wanted to give you guys a little look at that, just to see something that is coming down the road, and obviously when it's available, we will schedule another safe session in regard to that, and we'll show that off. All right, we're at the 45-minute mark, and I'm feeling pretty good about what we've covered here today. Any last comments, questions, thoughts, concerns? Joe, are you there? I'm not even hearing Joe. Am I just by myself right now?
Oh, I'm here.
Okay, good.
What kind of questions do you think that that triggered?
I don't know. I'm sure that everybody's like, when can I have it? Just tell me the date that it's going to be released, or somebody's going to go back and say, Ben said that on April 1 it's going to be available. All right. Well, guys, guys and gals, everybody involved, I appreciate your showing up for our safe session, and we'll send out that email that I told you earlier that will include the first two safe sessions, and we'll have some information coming out about the next safe session. I don't even know what the topic is going to be. I'm thinking right off the top of my head, what we're going to cover in the next one is everything in this settings area. So a lot of you, when you began to set up the product, you went through the settings area. I think we're going to cover all of those in detail, probably to include the report builder, custom data forms, we'll go through that to a pretty good degree. So that may very well be the next one. If anybody has any thoughts, certainly kick me over an email. If there's something you'd like us to detail in depth, I'm happy to take suggestions. Alrighty, guys. Well, we're going to end this session. Thank you very much for your time. As always, if you need anything, drop us an email or give us a phone call. You guys have a great day. Bye.